Hi, this is Kevin at the Virtual Planetarium at Raritan Valley Community College. Welcome to our weekly Star Talk. Today we're going to be talking about pi. Okay, not that pi. We're going to be talking about this pi. But before we do that, let's talk about our upcoming moon phases. We have a full moon on March 18th. We have a last quarter moon on March 25th. And then we have a new moon on April 1st. All right, like I said, today we're going to be talking about pi. Sadly, not this pi. We'll talk about this other pi. And that's because this week we are celebrating Pi Day. Pi Day is on March 14th, and we celebrated that day because pi, well, first of all, let's go into what is pi. Pi is a very, very important number in the world of science. It's what's called a constant because it never changes, and we use it for many, many, many different applications, most of them involving circles or ellipses or round stuff, spheres, stuff like that. Now, pi is a special number also because it's something called an irrational number, which means that you can't reason with it. No, I'm kidding. It means that it can't be described like a normal fraction, like this number right here. Another weird way of looking at it is to say that it has an infinite amount of numbers after the decimal. So we often refer to pi as 3.14, but that's very approximated. The real specific number actually goes on and on and on and on. I actually have a really cool example for you. Some people dedicate way too much time to finding out as many digits of pi as they can, or well, they have their computers do it. So here we have a really cool website. I'm going to put the link for this in the description, where we have the first billion digits of pi. And I just want you to observe how long it'll take me to actually scroll through all this. Again, when we talk about pi, we only approximate the first two or maybe a few more digits if you want to be a little more exact. But since the numbers never end, we have 3.1415, so on and so on and so on, we get an infinite list of numbers. Another fun fact about these numbers is that they never repeat, so you're never going to have the same pattern of numbers in this whole mess of what is pi. I'm going to actually move a little bit faster because I don't want to really spend that much time looking at all these numbers. Yeah. I'll put a mark in the video when you can skip over to all these numbers being done. But if you want to sit through it. I should have some background music for this because there's a lot of numbers. And we're going. Let's move a little faster, faster, faster. And we're still... Actually, we're more than halfway there at least. Billion is a lot. We're almost there. And we are reaching the billionth digit of pi is the number 1. Well, that was anticlimactic. But that's just to show you how never-ending pi is. Again, this is just the first billion digits of pi, but it is an infinite number, so that means that we probably won't ever know, well, can't possibly know what the last digit of pi is. But again, we just approximated to 3.14, and that's why we call March 14th, 314, Pi Day. The celebration of Pi Day started in 1988, I believe, when some physicist at the San Francisco Exploratorium of Science decided, hey, this would be a really fun day to celebrate. A fun fact about Pi Day, though, is that it's also Einstein's birthday. So that's pretty fitting for one of the greatest science minds ever. So, all right, but where does pi come from? Pi is just the ratio between the circle's diameter and its circumference, or basically how wide across the circle is versus how long it is around. If you were to measure both of these lengths in a circle perfectly, and then put the circumference over the diameter, make them a fraction, the result would be pi, this never-ending number. So that's why pi is so interesting. But now, how does it relate to astronomy? Well, it's heavily tied to science in general. Like I said, we use it to work with anything that has to do with circles. We can use it to help determine orbits of planets, motions, different gravitational pulls, so many other gross math and physics things. But don't worry, we won't bore you with that math stuff today, because it also relates to the stars. Specifically, it relates to the names of the stars. There are a lot of different names and ways to identify stars. Stars have their formal names, but they also have a bunch of different catalog designations. When we see Betelgeuse, for example, right up here, we see that the name pops up over a head, and we see that we have the formal name right here, Betelgeuse, and we also have the formal name in other languages. But below it, we see a bunch of letters and numbers that barely make any sense. These are the different catalog designations. We have Alpha Orionis, we have 58 Orion, we have HIP 27989, we have, look at this one, WDS J055. A lot of designations. One of these designations is called the Bayer designation, and that is the first one right here. This designation uses a Greek letter and the name of the constellation to which that star belongs to. And the designation, it's a little weird. It basically kind of organizes them by order of brightness, but even that gets a little weird. It's pretty arbitrary at times. The whole thing is way too long to explain for this video, so I'm actually just going to link the Wikipedia page for the Bayer designation in the description of this video, so you can read through it if you'd like to. But basically it boils down to the brightest few stars are the first few letters of the Greek alphabet, and then we go further and further down. So for example, Betelgeuse right here is Alpha, Rigel down here is Beta. Rigel's brighter, but that's okay, that's part of the weird confusion. And then as we go further and further down, we keep using the letters of the Greek alphabet. Now, every once in a while, if some stars are close together and the same magnitude, they would share the same letter, and that would make a whole different mess. The whole process really seems pretty arbitrary. But the point is, the catalog stuck for some reason. I guess somebody really liked the book he made, and we still call the stars by the Bayer designation. So Betelgeuse is Alpha Orion, Rigel is Beta, and then so on. Well, some constellations even have pi stars. Pi is the 16th letter in the Greek alphabet, so these stars aren't really the top brightest. But that being said, there are some pi stars that do stand out. So let's go through a few constellations and see if we can find the pi stars fairly easily. Now the first one we're going to start looking at is Orion, because, well, we have it right here. Which is probably not the best example because Orion is a very, very weird example. So let's put up the whole constellation of Orion. And the pi stars in Orion are actually fairly easy to find. They are right here in the shield or the bow of Orion. Now notice that I said pi stars, plural, and that's because Orion is really not a good example, because for some reason they decided to give it 6 pi stars. So each one of the stars here in the shield of Orion is a different pi star. So this one up top here, oh, that's a satellite. This one up top here is pi 1, this one's pi 2, this is pi 3, this is pi 4, pi 5, and then pi 6. And like I said before, usually when the stars were close together, they would share the same letter, but these really aren't that close together, so why they're named all pi, I don't really know. Again, it's a pretty arbitrary thing, but it stuck for some reason. Another constellation that has a fairly cool pi star, in this case it's also 2 pi stars, but these 2 pi stars are actually close together. We are going to go to the constellation of Boötes the herdsman, which is easy to find because of its bright star Arcturus right here. Arcturus is the 5th brightest star in the sky, or the 4th one, I believe, so it's very easy to find. Right here in the constellation of Boötes, we have its pi star. And again, it's not one of the brighter ones, but it's still fairly easy to see. But the really cool thing about this star is that it is a double star. It is something you need a telescope to see, but it doesn't have to be a big telescope as long as you can magnify the view at least 60 times. Some binoculars could even do that as well. And if you were to find this star in the sky, you would notice as you zoom in that instead of being 1 dot, it splits up into 2. And that's because these are 2 stars very close together, actually orbiting around each other. Now another constellation that has a fairly easy, actually is probably the easiest pi star to find, is the summer constellation of Hercules, right here next to Boötes. Hercules is a fairly easy constellation to find because it's really just this middle part right here, the part that you can find. It's called the keystone of Hercules. The artwork is just, he's upside down right here. But one of the corners of this keystone is actually the pi star. That is also a Starlink satellite. Hold on. There we go. So this, one of the, actually the 2nd or 3rd brightest star in the keystone is the pi star for Hercules. Now, we're not going to go over every single constellation, find all their pi stars because we don't have that amount of time. And actually, not every star has a pi star. Here's a quick little map I put together of all the pi stars that are visible in the sky in the early spring. And the orange stars are the pi stars, and then you can see the outlines of the constellations a little bit there. And we can see that there's a lot of constellations that don't have this star. And that's just either because Johann Bayer couldn't see the constellation. He was up in Germany, so he could only see so far south. Or there weren't enough bright stars to get to the letter pi. Or, you know, again, this whole process was very arbitrary, so who knows? Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you learned something new. Again, there's a lot of pi stars in the sky. We're not going to worry about that. Just enjoy Pi Day. Maybe make a pie. Maybe try to find one of the pi stars, or at least the pi arc in Orion. If you like this video, be sure to give us a like. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. We'll be putting out a new video every week. And thanks again for joining us. Hope you have a great week.